This is Fight Fans Radio.
Let's get ready to rumble! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
It's time!
You're listening to New Mexico's only mixed martial arts and boxing podcast, The Low Blow, on AtomCombatSports.com and Fight Fans Radio. It is episode 138 of The Low Blow. I am Justin Goodrum, joined by Jorge Hernandez. What's up, man?
Trying to survive this crazy weather we're having in Albuquerque, man.
I know, it's crazy. Well, at least we don't have tornadoes touching down here and destroying everything in its path, so I think I'll take it.
You're right about that, man. I'll take that.
No doubt. On episode 138 of our show, we're on Fight Fans Radio, U.S. Combat Sports, and SouthwestFight.com. We'll be talking about Michelle Waterson becoming the new Invicta champion. We'll talk about the Ultimate Fighter finale. We'll preview that, and we'll preview a intriguing matchup in boxing. Odito Donaire taking on Guillermo Rigondeaux. I think that's going to be on HBO, so that's going to be a fantastic doubleheader of both MMA and boxing. And we might have a surprise guest, so stay tuned for that. So a little bit of housekeeping notes. You can always get in touch with the show through Twitter, through @TheLowBlow, also through email, through lowblow505@gmail.com. Also, all of our interviews featuring the best in combat sports, not only in New Mexico, but also the Southwest, are on our YouTube page at youtube.com/lowblow505. So please subscribe to that. We're also available on Stitcher and on iTunes. Also, you can check out the Fight Fans Radio Network on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Ustream using their one name, Fight Fans Radio, that has our show along with the rest of the Fight Fans Radio family. Their shows features, MMA, of course, also jiu-jitsu, a little bit of pro wrestling in there. So a bunch of stuff to keep you busy for a long time. So, man, I guess let's get into it. The standing 8 count. It's our 8 top stories in mixed martial arts and boxing. And we start in the boxing world, which, according to the contract between Canelo and Austin Trout, it seems to favor Canelo Alvarez in terms of a rematch clause.
Yes, recently we had Austin Trout go on a radio show and did mention, it's Boxing Scene Radio to be exact, so we can quote the source. Austin Trout did mention that there is a rematch clause in his contract against Canelo Alvarez, but it only favors Saul Canelo Alvarez. This is different from, this is very similar, I should say, to the situation between him and Cotto. Cotto could have exercised his rematch clause within 2 months. He didn't decide to take the rematch. And again, Austin Trout, once again, is getting the short end of a stick of a possible rematch. Both guys are undefeated. Many people say, all right, if one of you guys loses, then you advance to maybe fight Floyd Mayweather or one of the bigger fights. But as of right now, as the contract is set, again, the fight is next Saturday in San Antonio, Texas. It's not going to go down with a rematch clause in favor of Austin Trout. So he's going to have to go in there and pull off a victory, even though the odds are a little against him.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre. You'd think he'd earn a little bit more respect considering what he did to Miguel Cotto, but I guess not. Looks like Matt Mitrione got in some trouble over his comments about Fallon Fox on the MMA Hour. I think it made CNN news. It really, of course, made all the headlines on the MMA websites and the blogs. Because of Mitrione's comments over Fallon Fox, he got suspended. If you watch that interview with Matt Mitrione, he has a segment called the Mitrione Minute, which he just comments on the various topics of mixed martial arts. And he brought up Fallon Fox on his own. So it wasn't like Ariel Helwani, who hosts the show, asked him a question. It was this Mitrione on his own volition, pretty much going off on a tirade. I won't repeat what he said totally. It's pretty hateful speech in my opinion. But UFC pretty much suspended him over his comments. So we don't know if he's fired. We don't know how long he's suspended, but he's suspended for now. And considering that, Miguel Torres, I remember Jorge talking about his comments about the rape ban. I believe he was fired. So compared to one tweet, here you have Mitrione going off on a 3-minute tirade on Fallon Fox. You think the punishment would be a little bit more severe. But I want to read these comments from UFC CEO Lorenzo Fertitta. Basically, in a nutshell, he said a fair debate and discussion of the issue should be allowed. But when you call it a disgusting and a Buffalo Bill, that's another matter. It warrants review. It's the same thing the NFL will look at it, and the same thing that any professional sports organization that is on the level we are at least going to take a look at. So I think along with their code of conduct policy and this pressure from not only MMA media but just the lesbian gay community, just the eyeballs that are focused on the UFC, they're pretty much forced to take this kind of action. So it looks like Mitrione's in the doghouse for now.
Yeah, man, it's when you have strong comments like that, you better be prepared for some type of consequence.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I just think if he just articulated his statements, I mean, if like Joe Rogan did, I mean, you're strongly against it. That's fine. But when you go to name calling and just trying to make yourself look better by putting others down, no one really cares what you have to say. You just come off as an idiot. So you should think more wisely next time.
Mm-hmm. Also, in UFC news, looks like we're going to have Rory McDonald against Jake Ellenberger. It's actually been confirmed for UFC on Fox 8. It actually surprises me that something with Carlos Condit actually wasn't set up. Did this take you by surprise?
A little bit, but I'm happy because especially with the UFC cutting guys, and considering that Carlos Condit's not really a draw, he's a hard. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're pretty biased. We love Carlos Condit, but at the same time, I mean, he loses 3 in a row. If Rory McDonald has a strong performance, and if he's dominant against Carlos, Carlos Condit's on a chopping block. That's insane, but it is true. So I'm glad maybe Carlos gets a lesser opponent that's ranked below that he can win and get himself back in title contention instead of fighting a major rematch for the top contender like Rory McDonald.
And also to put Rory McDonald on that card made a lot of sense regionally because the fight is taking place in Seattle, and of course Rory McDonald is from Vancouver, so it's about 2.5-hour drive from there. So he'll have a lot of support, and that should boost the attendance there in Seattle for that fight.
No doubt.
Another news, Bernard Hopkins plans to actually fulfill the mandatory obligation to fight a little-known fighter by the name of Kara Murat. The guy's a German professional boxer. He's a German-Armenian, actually. He was born in Armenia. He was born in Iraq, excuse me. He's 25-1. This guy has never fought in the United States. Most of his fights have been in Germany and the UK. Decent fighter. Again, 25-1, 1 draw. He has a okay power. He has 15 knockouts. Very young guy compared to Bernard Hopkins, of course, who's pushing 48 years old. This Caro guy is actually 29 years old. So it's interesting that he will fulfill that. I guess he just wants to keep that title. Otherwise, he would have been stripped of that title. So definitely wise for him to defend it. I mean, it's a little difficult to see how he would actually do against a guy like Caro, but nonetheless, it's a good, I guess, in-between fight if he were to win it and go on to fight, some bigger names.
Mm-hmm. Looks like there's some news surrounding the whole George St. Pierre weigh-in controversy. I think we reported on it a couple of weeks ago about Nick Diaz filing a protest, filing maybe a lawsuit against the Quebec Athletic Commission. Seems like there's going to be more action taken, considering what GSP said to a Canadian French language media that he believed that he weighed in at 170.4 pounds. And that's 0.04 of the normal championship limit of 170 pounds. So as we all know, you must weigh in at 170 pounds, period, not 107. I mean, you must weigh in at 170, not anything over that, no matter what, at least according to the UFC rules. But now with the Quebec board, they said they're able to round the weight down to 170. So I think in terms of what the UFC contract says, Nick Diaz may have a case, but I'm not really a lawyer. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, after all, Randy Couture went after the UFC in terms of a lawsuit trying to get the Fedor fight. He ultimately lost. So I don't really see, if Nick Diaz wants to have a team of lawyers, quote unquote, face the UFC, I think he's going to lose.
And I don't know, man. I thought it was kind of random for him to actually do that, to say that, and it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be extremely interesting to see how this actually plays out, and how this affects her, and how this actually favors Diaz in a way. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree.
Also, over the weekend, if you missed it, Shiming made his pro debut with the reported again. Shiming is the I guess what you can call one of the best fighters out of China. He just turned professional, earned $300,000 for a professional debut fight. Unheard of. I don't think in history we've ever actually seen that. But there were reported 300 million viewers just in China alone. So apparently the business was worth it. And I don't know if you caught him, Jay, but his talent is there. But it looks like he did have trouble against the young fighter. He still has an amateur type style. Not saying that he's not a good fighter. Literally, like an amateur, the way he fights with his hands down, and certain movements that he actually does have still appears to be that on that amateur level. But hey, if you're making $300,000 a fight and you're winning, I mean, I don't think he's going to complain much. And what also hurts him is he's a 31-year-old. Again, he's a hero in the country of China, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. He was actually thinking of going pro after the 2008 gold medal that he did win, but the government did talk him into fighting one more time. So it is definitely interesting to see how that actually goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I read somewhere. So is he signed with Top Rank? Or
I mean, it's difficult that he might be just slightly affiliated with them. I mean,
Okay.
I don't think he's clear out signed with them, but
Okay.
Bob Arum has been a huge proponent about having fights there in Macau, in China, which is like the Las Vegas of China, if you will. And obviously, I don't know how many times I heard here at the Venetian Arena in Macau. So it was huge sponsorship just for the Venetian to host a fight there. So expect more fights to happen there. The taxes are a lot cheaper there. So if a fifth fight, with Marcus and Pacquiao happens, expect Top Rank chief Bob Arum to take that fight there, just because of how much money the guys will be making because of how low the taxes are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a market that I think a lot of combat sports are trying to break into. I mean, the WWE had a show there last year. I think UFC had a show there. I think it's because of their population size. It certainly seems like a growing market. So, barring any trouble in the region with the recent news of what's been going on the last couple of weeks or so, if things stay the same, I think China's going to be a huge market. I mean, Dana White's always talked about breaking into China so many times, so we'll have to wait and see there. Looks like Bellator is going to go for a summer series, a 4-man tournament, which seems like it's going to feature King Mo. So instead of going through the longer version, they're going to try King Mo again and see what happens. So
they're going to ride that horse till it dies. That's what I hear.
That's right. I don't know why they just don't put him in the wrestling ring. I mean, he has that contract with Impact Wrestling. Maybe it's worth giving that in the shot before tossing him into the wolves of Bellator again. But nevertheless, Bellator is going to be holding a 4-man Summer Series 2013 tournaments. It's going to feature heavyweight, light heavyweight, bantamweight. Interesting. I think that's 3. Okay. So basically, there'll be prospects battling away for a title shot just like the other Bellator tournaments. It'll be very interesting since we did see the light heavyweight title fight here in New Mexico, specifically in Rio Rancho. If we'll get that again, since they're doing a light heavyweight tournament as well. So it'll be very interesting to see if Albuquerque is on the loop again if Bellator decides to come in this region.
Well, let's hope so. It's a strong possibility, man. So it's looking that way.
No doubt.
Yep. So, I mean, which of these stories to you stands out the most, man?
Certainly the GSP, the weighing controversy seems rather bizarre to me, at least. I think the Dimitrione thing took the internet by storm. And, I believe Ronda Rousey made some similar comments too that were very derogatory towards Fallon Fox. And I just feel like you have a problem with her fighting in a cage, that's cool. But I don't think you have to resort to name calling and just putting her down. It's kind of ridiculous. You only make yourself look like a fool. There are legitimate medical concerns, like you were stating last week, Jorge, which I completely agree with. And until we have a full medical evaluation of Fallon Fox in terms of her, I don't know how you would compare it to how a man fights in a cage, or if she's deemed fit to fight in there. It's really difficult to say because she's not a cyborg. I mean, she's made out of flesh and blood. I mean, she has, people are saying she's T-1000. It's true she was a man, but she's been taking hormone-reducing drugs. She did have her physiological changes. It seems like to me that just because there's a bone structure, there seems to be a lot of this speculative analysis as to if Fallon Fox is that much stronger than her female counterparts. It's just a lot of speculation and not enough scientific data to really bar her from fighting, in my opinion.
No, and it's I don't know. I mean, I don't know where I actually stand with this. I'm against her actually fighting against women. But I'm not gonna go name calling like Mitrione did. You know what I mean? just makes you look like a complete jerk and just insensitive person by just calling someone like, that many amount of names. And when you're not even prompted to do it, which was even crazier.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was a trip because he has like a script he reads on his Mitrione Minute on the show. So I'm like, and his other jokes weren't that funny either. So I don't know, because really Mitrione's a really engaging guy. I don't think he has to resort of having some kind of stand-up routine. So it was just really bizarre.
Where does he go from here?
Ooh, Mitrione?
Yes.
Uh, I say this is all kind of a dog and pony dance. He's gone, whatever. Keep him out till September, October, and he's back. He's fine. So I think they probably told Mitrione, say nothing, do nothing, and we'll call you in the summer. I mean, not in the summer, but we'll call you in the fall for a fight. So, I guess let's get into 2 rounds. It is what our opinion is of the best, hottest topics in MMA or boxing. Myself and Jorge. Do you want to go first, man?
Yeah, it's just that the fact that the Canelo Alvarez and Austin Trout fight, or I guess training camps, have had drug testing administered throughout them. So, that's good to see that these guys are, accepting of having these drug tests just to make sure that these guys come up clean. I'm in favor of it. We don't want anyone, to get hurt. Ultimately people getting hurt happens, but if someone's using an illegal supplement to be able to administer punishment to someone else, then that isn't a right. That's just because they have an unfair advantage. So it's good to see that those guys are actually being drug tested. And we're, I'll be headed to Ruidoso this weekend to, shoot a few videos, interviews with Austin Trout. So make sure you guys keep an eye out for that on our Facebook page and on swfight.com.
Cool. Right on, man. Yeah. YouTube page, youtube.com/Loblo505. Please go check that out. My thing is just, I guess, with The Ultimate Fighter, I watched this entire season. I can't help it. I watch terrible reality TV, so this a reality television show about MMA, specifically The Ultimate Fighter, even though it's gotten much criticism, I'm still going to pretty much watch it. It was a solid season, entertaining. The fights were good. I think the big highlight of the show was, of course, Uriah Hall, his emergence. But I just think in order to get the MMA base in tune with, supporting that show, there needs to be more focused on getting to know these fighters in terms of if they are contenders or not. Like, a lot of times I watch these guys fight and I really have no motivation to see who would win. I wouldn't care in terms of, they would say the win-loss record. It wouldn't really mean too much to me. I mean, one guy's 5-1, the other guy's 11-6. It's kind of, I don't really know what that means. Like, I'm not going to waste my time going on SureDog and the Fight Finder looking up all these guys. So I think, to me, it would be nice to see some fight footage. It'd be nice to maybe, interview some of the coaches that these guys train at the gyms and maybe get some hype around it. Get me, myself in particular, excited about seeing these guys fight in the cage and not seeing, 2 random guys, one guy who has an emotional story and the other guy is a jerk. Like, it needs to be more than that to really, I think, get the hardcore base back into watching the show. Because, this show I kind of compared to like the NFL draft, the NBA draft. You're into seeing those guys get drafted because you've had a narrative of seeing them play in college. But with The Ultimate Fighter, you don't have that luxury because there's no college MMA. So you need to get these guys' stories across. You need to get them portrayed as serious contenders in the UFC, and just having them just tell their story and just, portray themselves as a jerk or the nice guy, whatever, in the house is not going to work. So hopefully in the future they put some more highlights in there and they make me care about who's winning in there. Other than really Uriah Hall killing people, the fights were good, but it wasn't that really engaging of a season, despite the improvements. So, man, let's talk about this Invicta 5 card, a unbelievable card. Of course, Invicta delivers again. To my knowledge, there was no problem in terms of the live stream. Just your thoughts on the overall card. We don't have to break down each and every fight, but Michelle Waterson, Jessica Penne, a classic Atomweight title fight. Michelle Waterson getting the arm bar in round 4, 231. An incredible fight. I think a lot of people were picking Penne to win, but Waterson, I think, pulls off the minor upset. Your thoughts on that fight?
That fight was incredible. I mean, the grappling display with both women were amazing. For Michelle Waterson to be able to use some leverage to Well, I mean, she was actually, I mean, a lot shorter than Penne, but she was able to take her down because she would use Jessica's own weight against her. This is actually one of two fights that I only saw on the card. I still got to go back to see the whole thing, man. So I'm hearing some great things about it, and I'm pretty sure it'll be easy to find online. I mean, that Penne and Waterson fight was very easy to find. But I was surprised that Penne actually tapped as quick as she did. I didn't even see the tap I didn't even notice the tap, to be honest, when the referee stopped the fight. As far as Penne had a pretty good armbar. Was it in the third or the second? I think it was the third, where it kind of looked like, I don't know, it was kind of strange. It looked like Waterson's elbow may have popped out of place, but it didn't bother her. Mm-hmm. It was really weird, man. And I thought, watching the fight, I thought Waterson may have been done there, and she fought through it. She showed tons of resilience, man. Like, you could tell she wanted to win that championship pretty bad, and the display of grappling by both women really impressed me. And, Liz Carmouche was the other fight that I actually saw, and obviously that one didn't last long, but very impressed by both Penne and Michelle Waterson. A lot of people weren't giving Waterson much of a chance here in this fight, just because she did win a questionable split decision in her last contest, but yeah, she proved that she belonged at that level.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. The other fight, I think, which is on the Invicta YouTube page itself, is Christina Cyborg Santos just annihilating Fiona Muslow.
How close was that fight? Was there any competition in that? Be honest.
Not really.
That's the fight that I didn't see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you watch it from Muxlow's guts. I think, if I were to remember correctly, it's the longest I've seen someone last in a fight with Cyborg in a very long time. To me, I just questioned her, like her corner, like her hands were down. I was like, she's just getting annihilated by Cyborg Santos. Like, she needs to fight back in order to get this woman off of her, because the fight got pretty deep in round one. And quite honestly, if she had some form of offense and had some better defense, I'm not saying she would win, but she certainly wouldn't have gotten destroyed as she would have with her strategy in round one. But nevertheless, this victory by Cyborg sets up a matchup against Marlies Kunin on the next Invicta card. So, still impressive win by Cyborg.
How do you see that fight? I mean, I know we're a long way away from it, probably 3 or so months from it. So,
oof, it's tough because Cyborg is a very talented fighter, and I think I don't know. It's one of those things. She's got the Tyson syndrome. It's like, the question is she so talented, better than the rest of her competition, or is that competition just not there at 145? I think with Marlies Kunin, it's probably the best test she's going to have, not named Ronda Rousey. I think I picked Cyborg in that fight. I think she has pretty good jiu-jitsu. I think you saw that against Gina Carano years ago. So I like Cyborg, but I think Marlies Kunin is certainly going to give her a run for her money. It's certainly going to be a closer fight than I think most people think.
What was your fight of the night on this card?
Man. Well, like you, I saw some of the fights, not most of them. I would say the best move of the fight had to be the flying armbar by
definitely.
Rose Namajunas.
You know what? I lied. That's another one that I watched also. That was beautiful to actually watch, man.
Yeah, that was incredible. Like, you seen Pat Barry, that's Rose's boyfriend. Pat H.D. Barry was freaking out, was losing his mind. It's an unbelievable armbar, a very unique victory celebration afterwards. Nevertheless, Rose got the victory. We should mention that Jody Escobar fell to defeat to Alexa Chambers via round one, minute 35 via the rear naked choke. Still a very exciting card. Beck Hyatt, who was in the title fight, the last Invicta card, she got a submission victory round one. She had a lot of bad blood against her opponent. Sarah Kaufman won a controversial split decision, 29-28, 28-29, 29-28 over Leslie Smith. So a very entertaining card. I just question, in the future, Invicta has this kind of friendly agreement with the UFC, and to my knowledge, Shannon Knapp has allowed the women to try out for the next Ultimate Fighter. I mean, we've seen with the men, and I'm not sure how the women will work, but I have to assume it's a great opportunity. If you're a 115-pound fighter, you might want to gain 2 weight classes and move up just to see what happens. I mean, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You don't know how long this women's division is going to stick around the UFC. I can see a lot of these women just trying out for the heck of it. Do you ultimately think, my question to you, Jorge, do you think this organization has a future as a organization separate from the UFC? Or is it always going to be, a farm system for women's talent? for the UFC that didn't cherry pick later.
Well, I mean, it can become a legitimate organization. I think it already is, to be honest. I mean, they just set a Ustream record. Well, I mean, for it to become, I guess, legitimate, that if they were on network television or even some sort of cable, network, then that would solidify them, I think. And they're not too far from that. I think they're within a year of actually getting that done. And as far as this being a farm system for women, this might be the highest level that a lot of those weight classes go. I don't see the UFC bringing in the 105, 115, 125s for women, right away. I think they're going to ease into it with this 135-pound division that they actually have. So I still think that even if the UFC brings in 35 and 25 pounders, the 115s and the 105s will still have a home in Invicta, and Invicta will still be at the elite class for women at those weight classes, I think.
But yeah, I just don't know what's the ceiling then if all your stars, as most likely are going to carry your weight classes. You take a look at even 145 with Invicta, they're developing a large farm, a deep roster at 145. I mean, I've heard rumors that Cyborg's not completely cut off with the UFC. If they build up a couple of more 145-pound fighters, there they go to the UFC. So my fear is just, that cat and mouse game. If they cut off the UFC completely, do you make them an enemy, or you kind of keep a friendly alliance going? It's just really, it's weird. It's a awkward situation.
Well, like you said, I mean, it's a little strange. Something I think of is the WEC, where the weights kind of overlapped, but all the weight class. See, because the UFC didn't have all the weight classes that the WEC had when the WEC was in its prime.
Correct.
It wasn't until they acquired them that they then incorporated those. I think we're kind of seeing, the same thing with the women's weight classes. So expect here within the next 2 years for. Will the UFC go down as low as atomweight men? What do you think? You think they will? For women, of course.
Ultimately, it depends on the draws. If there's a deep enough to list just with Ronda Rousey. I mean, ultimately, Dana White knew probably nothing about women's fighting. He was just, and I don't want to say in love with her, but certainly just moved and really pumped up about Ronda Rousey's talent that he decided to form this division around her. I mean, he even said that this is the Ronda Rousey show. So if he sees, another person that's super popular at 105, it wouldn't surprise me if he takes a chance. I mean, Dana White's like that. I mean, if he sees something that's going to be profitable, that's going to benefit the UFC, he'll do it. Just like with this last season of The Ultimate Fighter, signing all those guys to the finale. I mean, it's something that with the UFC cutting most of their roster nowadays, and that, if guys are fighting for their job, each time they get into the octagon, he's still signing the roster of The Ultimate Fighter to one fight deal. So certainly, he's paying more attention. Lorenzo's paying more attention. Joe Silva paying more attention to Invicta. If there's, Michelle Waterson, she has some outside popularity. She was on Bully Beatdown years ago. She does modeling, stuff like that. Some of these women have other things outside of the cage. If they get more popularity, it could be a road worth exploring. I mean, take a look at women's MMA. I mean, it's only been around in terms of it being on TV, I want to say 07, 08. And look at the most popular women's MMA fighters now: Carano, Cyborg, and Rousey. I mean, they're extremely popular. I mean, right now, if you just make a list of the most popular MMA fighters or fighters associated with the sport, they're probably in the top 15, probably. So there's certainly a profitable future in the lower weight divisions. We just have to see if the depth matches that. Let's focus on UFC on Fuel, the latest edition coming from Sweden. Lots of controversy because Gegard Mousasi had a change of opponent from Alexander Gustafsson to Yair Latifi. A very, people would say a lackluster fight. Mousasi had some knee problems. Latifi took the fight on short notice, had to cut a lot of weight. Mousasi gets the victory. So I guess in the end, it's a win for the UFC. It's a win for Mousasi. You get to set up a future encounter down the line with either Gustafsson, or what he wants is Lyoto Machida and or a title shot. So I think that's fairly interesting. With this card, don't have to break down every fight. I enjoyed the Brad Pitt and Mike Easton fight a lot. Of course, Matt Mitrione, he got his win in round one. People should be talking about that, but instead they're talking about his controversial comments. Jackson's trained fighter, Diego Brandao, was victorious over Pablo Garza. That's a huge win. Ross Pearson was victorious over Ryan Couture. Anything that impressed you on this card?
Just the intensity that Diego Brandao came out with. No one was beating him that evening.
Yeah, I agree. Also, you take a look at Conor McGregor, man. I don't know. We didn't even talk about this guy last week.
No,
But
didn't.
this guy's been making a lot of noise in Ireland, man. And I guess in his post-fight press conference, he said he was on welfare. And I believe he won KO of the night, I think.
And he's funny as hell.
Yeah, it's very engaging
The
guy.
guy is hilarious. He makes fun of himself, and I love that, man. And that's a guy that people can actually get behind.
Yeah, really talented. I think a lot of people want him on that Boston card. I think it's the first UFC show on the new Fox Sports 1 in Boston. So I think that would be great, excuse me, for him to be on there, definitely. Also, Tom Lawler was victorious. A huge wrestling fan. If you know Tom Lawler from his interviews, he missed WrestleMania, so he got the victory. So I think that makes up for it, being in Sweden. So, man, I guess we should talk a little bit more about these Mitrione comments over Fallon Fox. I want to ask you, I know we kind of broke down the debate if she should be in the octagon, or not in the octagon, but just in the cage in general. But I want to ask you, why is this story getting so much attention from UFC fighters? I mean, I believe she's only 2-0. I mean, I think she fights at 145. It's a UFC's prerogative. They're going to say she's not good, and this, especially since she's a 145, they're going to say they don't have the weight class. Why is this such a big issue for the UFC specifically? You see a lot of UFC fighters, not even the women, just random male UFC fighters commenting on the story with heavy opinions. Why do you think this is such a UFC issue?
I think just because a lot of these fighters are putting themselves in those shoes, like, would I go fight women? Of course not. But it's an entire different issue when it comes to, to TUF Fi. And I think that's what it might be it. And they're themselves are helping fuel this story in the national spotlight. I mean, if they weren't talking about it, then it probably wouldn't. It would have gone away in a week. But it continues to thrive, and it's just goes. And it puts this transgender, I guess, issue that the mainstream actually has into, the limelight. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable with it. And when people don't feel comfortable with something, they voice their opinion and sometimes say crazy, very, then come off like bigots or racist or being discriminatory. And that's what's happening. I mean, people are voicing their opinions over something they feel is not right and that they're pretty adamant about, whether it's just, the whole transgender, process itself, or whether it's just the idea of a man fighting a woman. And that's what they're looking at it as. And, they're voicing their opinions, and it's obviously hurt them in some way.
Yeah, it's fairly bizarre. I mean, as long as the UFC keeps their stance at not having 145-pound weight class, this is a non-issue for the UFC. It's a non-issue for Miesha Tate or Ronda Rousey or Kaz Nagano. I mean, the list goes down the line. I mean, they're not going to have to fight her because you can't make the weight class. So I don't really understand ultimately what their issue is with that issue. But I guess this story's not going away in terms of it being in the UFC spotlight. We'll have to see where we go from there. Let's focus on boxing. Nolito Donaire has a huge fight this weekend on HBO, taking on Guillermo Rigondeaux. You were going over his credentials off the air, Jorge. Can you give us a quick synopsis on Guillermo Rigondeaux and just why do you think he deserves this fight despite only having an 11-0 record?
Let me quickly go. I won't even quickly go through this. Let's admire this.
Sure. Yeah.
2000 Sydney bantamweight gold medal. 2004 Athens Games bantamweight gold medal. World Amateur Championships 2001 gold. 2005 Mi Yang gold. Pan American Games Santo Domingo gold. Central American and Caribbean Games 2006 gold. World Cup 2002 and 2005 World Cup Championships. It's an event that's held all over the world. It's every 3 years they actually hold it. Gold in 2002 and 2005. And when it comes to his amateur record, he says he's had almost 400 fights and only had 12 losses. But by all marks of history, many consider him the greatest amateur boxer of all time. He decided to finally defect Cuba. It wasn't too long ago that he actually did. In 2009, when he had 7 fights, he fought for an interim world championship. Again, people, 7 fights and he became world champion. That's crazy in boxing. It's very rare. For those of you wondering, the record is 3 fights as a professional to become a world champion. And there's only maybe a handful of people that have won world championships before their 10th fight, and Guillermo Rigondeaux was one of them. Extraordinary skill, very technical, very slick. I mean, a lot of people don't like his style just because he'll kind of stand in front of you and just, kind of ease you out and feel you out for a while, and then just be able to, to hurt you. This guy, again, is 11-0 with 8 knockouts. He's from Santiago de Cuba in Cuba. Very, very good, very, very good fighter. And this is something people have been waiting for a while. And it was since people heard that Guillermo Rigondeaux was possibly going to defect from Cuba when he started winning his first couple of fights. They saw this fight down the line for them to possibly face off one another, and then we have it, man. And again, Nonito Donaire, for people who don't know who he is, world champion, trains with Robert Garcia. Robert Garcia, again, has a loaded stable. Nonito Donaire is 30 years old. He's 31-1. His first fight of his career, or second fight of his career, I should actually say. So, I mean, he's been on a tear ever since. No one has actually come close to even beating him. He's had incredible knockout victories over Jorge Arce, very good fight against Wilfredo Vasquez, and of course, one of the KOs of the year against Fernando Montiel, where he left Fernando Montiel shaken on the ground for a while. So that's why people are so pumped about this fight. 2 belts are up, so it's a unification fight, WBO and WBA Super Bantamweight titles. And check this out. The fight's happening at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. How awesome is that?
That's right. I believe I heard a stat. It's a rarity that boxing's at Radio City Music Hall. Do you remember the last time it was there?
Oh, man.
I forgot. I heard the stat and I kind of blanked.
Last Radio City Music Hall, I can't remember, but the venue holds maybe 6,000 people. But still, I mean, very classy venue there in New York City. So there's going to be a lot of boxing fans there. Expect to see a pretty good Cuban contingent just because it is out east. Should be a pretty entertaining fight, man, and that's why people are so pumped about it. Odds makers don't have this fight very, very spread out. They have Nonito Donaire a slight favorite, and for obvious reasons, he's got a little more experience in the professional ranks, and he's actually been on a pretty good winning streak lately. So as of right now, the way they are right now, Guillermo Rigondeaux is right at a 2-1 underdog, but he's floating between a 1.5 to 2. And Nonito Donaire is a 2.5 to 1 favorite. So anything can happen in this fight, and it's going to be very interesting because both guys, I guess, Nonito Donaire is a little more aggressive, but Rigondeaux, he's going to stay in front of Donaire. So we might either have a chess match or we might have one of the best counter-punching fights that we've ever had. But of course, someone has to throw a fight for there to be a counterpunch. So that's that's what a lot of people are worried about. That this fight has the potential of being a very well fought technical fight, or just a complete snoozer, a complete snoozer, man. I hope we get the fight that we're all hoping for and that we've all been waiting for.
With both these guys, we talked about it off the air with Rigondeaux being 32, and Nonito Donaire is not a young guy himself. He's 30. So I'm just wondering, what was the thought process putting these guys together now? Maybe letting, especially Rigondeaux, maybe build his reputation in terms of fighting some more name caliber guys, since they do fight under the same banner. Maybe building it a little bit more throughout the year of 2013 before putting them together this quickly.
There are no other big names on that.
That's just those two.
In that division. It's just them. Well, I mean, no disrespect to Abner Mares, of course, because he's one of the best fighters in the world in that weight division, the super bantamweight division. But as far as names that these guys have beaten, I mean, Christian Mijares, he's an older guy. Carl Frampton, I mean, he's young up and coming guy from the UK. I mean, a lot of these guys have already been defeated by these two, and Abner Mares is the next guy that they should fight. Nonito Donaire and Abner Mares, that was neck and neck with Guillermo Rigondeaux, a possible fight everyone wanted for Nonito Donaire. But the problem, top-ranking Golden Boy. Abner Mares is signed to Golden Boy. Nonito Donaire is signed to HBO. It's going to be hard to probably see that fight. Abner Mares is a very good fighter, and it's going to be hard. No matter who wins this fight, if it's a good fight, they'll rematch. It'll make money within house with Top Rank, meaning Donaire and Rigondeaux. But if either of these guys were to win convincingly, a fight against Abner Modest will be very difficult. And a jump to featherweight, I don't know if we'll see it for either guy. I don't think we'll see it for Nonito Donaire to go up in featherweight because the number one kingpin in that weight class is Mikey Garcia, and they're very good friends. They're both trained by Mikey Garcia's brother. So I don't think it'll happen.
Interesting. Again, that fight's being taken place, I believe, on HBO.
That fight is taking place on HBO this weekend. So
okay, so would it be a trip if this fight did live up to the expectations in HBO? I mean, for all their trouble, for all kind of bad publicity they've suffered this year, if they could get 3 Fight of the Year candidates, I mean, that'd be pretty much a trip.
It'd be a huge boost. It'd be a punch in the face to a lot of people that criticize them for losing all those Golden Boy fighters. So I think they're holding out that this is another good one. But, I mean, what HBO has been able to put together with the Timothy Bradley fight and then, of course, the Mike Alvarado-Rios fight, has been pretty incredible and making people forget about the whole Golden Boy situation.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. So on one part of the Saturday, you have boxing, and of course in MMA, they have their offering the UFC presenting the Ultimate Fighter 17 finale from the Mandalay Bay Event Center. Usually it's at the Joint at the Hard Rock, but because of Dana White's gambling problems, is at a bigger venue. So the main event, it's Uriah Faber versus Scott Jorgensen. The co-main event featuring the TUF 17 tournament final between Uriah Hall and Calvin Galsam, also featuring Misha Tate versus Kat Zingano. The winner of that fight will coach against Ronda Rousey in the next edition of The Ultimate Fighter. Also in a compelling bout, Travis Brown takes on Gabriel Gonzaga. If you remember, Travis Brown, his last fight was against Antonio Bigfoot Silva. I believe he had some knee issue, and Silva caught him and finished him. So overall, it's a pretty decent main event card featuring a must-win fight between Faber and Jorgensen. Which fight on here catches your eye?
Let's see. I'm going to take a look at the entire card here. Just because...
Oh, you're going Facebook too, huh? It seems like you're not too excited about this.
I'm not too thrilled, man. I mean, the Uriah Hall, all right, I'm interested in seeing how he actually does.
You should check that out.
In the spotlight, just because, I mean, the guy is phenomenal. He has some crazy skill. I think that one. I think I'm going to go with that one. With Kelvin and Uriah, see how Uriah is able to actually perform in the limelight and on the big stage. Because, to be honest, I think Uriah Faber is going to easily defeat Scott Jorgensen, man.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the fight will be pretty competitive. Scott Jorgensen's pretty underrated. He's a pretty talented fighter. I mean, his losses are against incredible fighters. I mean, look who he lost to. I mean, Eddie Wineland. Really, that's only pretty much the bad loss of his record. Eddie Wineland's no slouch. I mean, he's fighting for the title. I mean, he lost to Renan Barao, unanimous decision. I mean, he lost to Dominic Cruz. I mean, it's honestly the only really bad. I mean, he had some, certainly Damasio Page lost to him, lost to Antonio Bajuelos. But I think lately, I mean, he fought some really difficult competition. So I kind of disagree. I think I'm picking Uriah Faber like you are, but I think this fight will be much closer than what people expect.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'd say first or second round TKO for Uriah.
Wow. Well, that certainly would be what the UFC wants, considering they want more spotlight on that bantamweight division. So
yeah, definitely. Hey, so if you can tell me something. Here's the thing. I've never seen Kat fight before.
I have not either.
But the odds makers have her as a favorite. Slight favorite over Misha Tate, which surprises the hell out of me just because I think, Misha Tate's a very talented fighter. And for someone like Kat, who hasn't fought on the big stage, meaning Strikeforce or the UFC, I mean, last contest that she actually had was an Invicta. So, I mean, do they know something that we don't, man? I mean, what's going on?
I think certainly in team sports they do, because they seem to be always right. But I think in fighting it's kind of different. I'm taking a look at Kat Zingano's record right here. I mean, besides Karina Dam's a nice win and Raquel Pennington, I'm no women's MMA guru or expert, but taking a look at her resume, I mean, it's not exactly providing the evidence to make her the clean favorite against Misha Tate. I think perhaps it's because of Tate, Julie Kedzie is considered. I mean, we respect her ability, and I think anybody who really watches the sport closely enough think Julie Kedzie is a fantastic fighter. But I think a lot of people think she's past her prime. She lost pretty definitively against Ronda Rousey. I don't know. It's weird because prior to her loss to Ronda, I mean, honestly, if you count the Ronda fight, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, she's 7 out of her last 8 victories. I mean, her only loss is to Ronda Rousey. I mean, she's 7 out of her last 8 after her Sarah Kaufman unanimous decision loss. So it's just really bizarre. I mean, it's weird because Miesha Tate fought on the Hook and Shoot Bulldog Fight Women's Tournament. That's the tournament. I don't know if you have heard the story, Jorge, but that's the tournament that Caitlin Young, I believe, won 4 fights in one night to win.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if have you ever heard that story before?
No, I have not, man. That's pretty amazing.
They had a Bulldog was popular back in the day, and I think Caitlin Young, excuse me, she won all by this knees and head kicks and knees to the body. She destroyed everybody, not include Miesha Tate. So really, besides that, in which Caitlin Young just went absolutely insane. I mean, Miesha Tate has a beautiful resume on here, and I'm agreeing. I mean, totally agreeing with you. I don't really know why Katlyn Zingano's the favorite. That's really bizarre to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at this the odds now. Only one casino has them even. They're both favored the same, but all the other ones actually have Kat as a slight favorite. So it's pretty interesting to me. That was actually pretty shocking.
How do you think Travis Brown's gonna?
That's what I was just gonna ask you about. How he's going to respond from a defeat. I think. Gabriel Gonzaga is no walkover, man. The dude's on a 3-fight win streak. We thought he was on his way out of the UFC when he lost to Junior. Well, I mean, all due respect, he did fight 2 pretty good fighters in Dos Santos and Brendan Schaub when he actually lost 2 straight, and of course he lost to Shane Carwin, a fight or so before that. The guy I think was like 3-4 or 3-5 actually. I'm looking at the record now with the UFC. We thought he was on his way out, and then all of a sudden he puts 3 straight wins together and chokes out. Not chokes out. He did submit Ben Rothwell. So this is a pretty compelling matchup, I think.
It is very compelling, underrated heavyweight matchup because both these guys are pretty talented and very versatile. This is no walkover for Travis Brown, and I think if he does happen to finish Gabriel Gonzaga, this will be a nice bounce back win. And I think it should silence some of the critics, criticizing him, because of his loss over Bigfoot Silva, and not really. His excuse was he has a knee injury, but I think a lot of people said, he just got knocked out by Bigfoot. I don't think people were taking it too seriously. I think the quote is here. I'm trying to find it here. Brown said, even though he got injured, he didn't take anything away from the Bigfoot victory. He says, Brown came out aggressive. This is from the Wikipedia page, but Brown came out aggressive, showing a variety of striking techniques. A few minutes later, after being countered, Brown tore his left hamstring. Silva capitalized, and the rest was history. So I think a lot of critics were still criticizing Brown for just being kind of a flash in the pan, but I think Travis Brown's for real. So I think this fight against Gabriel Gonzaga, who's won 3 in a row, will be a great, show-off fight to display what Travis Brown could do.
Yeah, if you had to pick some winners, all right, let's go top 4 because I really don't know much about Robert McDaniel and Gilbert Smith. No offense to those guys, but
sure. Well, and then let's say Uriah Hall is going to win. That's an easy fight to pick.
Okay, and I'm going Faber very easily.
Oh, me too. I like Miesha Tate.
I'm going Tate also. I mean, just because, like I said, Kat hasn't been on this level. She seems rather comfortable though in interviews and other media opportunities that she's actually been doing. But I think I'm going all favorites here, man. Faber, Hall, Tate, and Travis Brown.
I think I'll go against you because I just have a soft spot over Gabriel Gonzaga because of the Crow Cop knockout. It's rare I go against, the New Mexico guys, Jackson's trains fighters. But just to be contrarian, I think I'll pick Gabriel Gonzaga in that fight for the upset. But I think you have a good point with Kat Zingano. I mean, Miesha Tate's used to the spotlight. I mean, she's used to the attention of fighting on national television on Showtime compared to Kat Zingano. This is her first time on a big platform. And even though this is the Ultimate Fighter finale, it's not a UFC 150-something. This is a lot of pressure. The male counterparts, they get nervous their first UFC fight. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, let alone being the second women's fight in UFC history. It's a ton of pressure to live up to. and we don't really know if she's going to be able to handle it or not.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Who knows how big this is? And again, she's on the main card. It's not like she's on a prelim card. She's going straight to the lines with Misha Tate, man.
Yep, no doubt. Some other MMA news. We have about 10 minutes here. I don't know if you caught this, but apparently we have suffered another mixed martial arts death. It was on an amateur bout in Michigan. The bout was stopped in the third round as the opponent was not defending himself. He did not. Early reports says he did not sustain any notable damage. He appeared fatigued, but a common occurrence for a first-time fighter. The coroner report was not expected back for a few weeks. This is from a report from the Underground, mixedmartialarts.com, by the way. More information from CBC News. This is a quote from them. There is no evidence that a Hamilton man died from trauma he sustained during an unregulated martial arts match. That's a quote from the representative of a Michigan's coroner's office. Again, he just had an MMA fight. He just got a little exhausted, and the fight was stopped, said his trainer. He was perfectly fine all night. He just got tired at the end, got a little dizzy. They gave him some juice, and he collapsed forward. They're doing an autopsy to see if he had a heart attack or whatever, unquote. That was from the trainer. It's a very bizarre situation. If you watch Luke Thomas's chat on YouTube, pretty much he's against amateur MMA bouts that are unregulated. I think this is a perfectly good example. With this happening, and certainly this is unregulated, you saw, if you've been seeing the news, as recently as today, Michigan, I believe, passed a law that now regulated amateur mixed martial arts. I think it's too little too late. But with this happening, this is certainly a blow to the sport, considering it's trying to get legalized in New York and some other states out east. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think I'm just on the line with that. It's just scary anytime. I guess it just really makes you think of stuff like that when deaths happen in the sport. But where do you stand with the whole issue?
Yeah, I just think this regulation is just a big part of the sport, man. It makes me want a national commission. I know I've heard people talk about it, and people say it's impossible and it's never going to happen. But I think it has to happen for just the safety of the sport. I mean, we can't have guys fighting on Indian reservations. We can't have guys who appear to be in good shape just all of a sudden want to fight in a cage one night. Like, we've heard, how many stories have you heard, man, of a guy sitting up in the stands and the main event collapses and the promoter's like, "Hey, you guy, you step in, you want to fight." And the guy raises his hand and says, "Yes, we'll give you $400. Go in there and fight." I mean, that cannot happen anymore. I think we're beyond that. It's not 1995, man.
Or even crazier, where you actually see the referee, who's supposed to be the most professional person in the venue, actually punch one of the fighters or even hurt the fighters. It's unreal, man.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And I think Michigan did the right thing of ultimately regulating mixed martial arts, amateur MMA in that city, in that state, excuse me.
And as far as the native reservations, your beef specifically with them, is it because of the elbows and everything else that could be used out there?
Well, then you remember, I think we had the issue with the fighter. I'm spacing on his name right now. I think his last name's Maynard, the fighter who was featured on ESPN, who had no arms, no legs. He had a fight, and I think that was, I believe, I think it was in a southern state. I think his name's Kyle Maynard. Let me see. I don't know if you remember that story, but it was all over. It was all over the news. I think he got an ESPY. And I think I'm trying to think here. I mean, he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2012. So the guy he's hardcore. This is 2004 in a fight in Auburn, Alabama. He fought a fight. This guy has no arms, no legs. He fought a fight in Auburn, Alabama. And he lost. I mean, he lost a fight, whatever it's worth. But it's just bizarre. I mean, this cannot be happening in really the sport anymore. I mean, it's just.
And I like how Erica gets Mississippi.
You're not too far off. But yeah, it's insane. We just can't have these circuses going on anymore. And I think if you talk about the story about, I believe, forgot, what's his name with the fighter that only has one hand?
Oh
XFC.
my god. Oh, how do I forget his name?
I know. I'm spacing it too. Um,
What am I?
but with
Nick
him,
Nick New- Nick Newell. Nick
there we
Newell,
go. He is
145 pounder. Yep.
yeah, he's 100% ready to fight. I mean, he can fight with anybody. His disability did not hold him back, and he's fine. So I just think in the future, a lot of these commissions, when they are first getting into the game, I think Paul Lazenby, who has been in the mixed martial arts community in Canada, has talked about it, in Vancouver and just British Columbia, the commission problems over and over and over again, these commissions not knowing what they're doing when they have professional mixed martial arts in their particular province or state. It's just, there needs to be at least a commission, a national commission, at least in America, and certainly a North American commission to kind of handle all this stuff. Or else you're going to have these deaths and unfortunate incidents happen. So with 5 minutes left to go, man, is there anything else you want to kind of cover or anything that we missed you want to say?
No, just I mean, really looking forward to hopefully covering that Austin Trout and a Canelo Alvarez fight, just because of how important the fight is for the 154-pound division, and for I guess in a way the future of boxing, because if Canelo wins, this will solidify him as a person who just doesn't take these easy, these fights against guys who are coming up to face him. He's facing a legitimate 154-pounder, very dangerous left-handed fighter in Austin Trout. And the same for Austin. This is going to launch him to superstardom. To defeat the most popular Mexican fighter, it's like I said, I was going to launch him to superstardom. It's going to open so many doors for him. So
Well, we were kind of talking about that when he fought Miguel Cotto. So let's say he wins in a really boring fashion because, with Austin Trout, he's a very technical boxer. Do you think that'll still happen if he has a very close and, he turns into an ugly fight?
I think it will. I think it'll still help him just because of the fact he's the first person to put an O on Canelo Alvarez's record. Right now, he's a slight underdog, but just holding a win over him is actually going to boost this. And I'm going to bring it up with him this weekend. But it was 20 years ago that a black man fought a Mexican man in San Antonio and was hosed out of one of the worst decisions in boxing history. That was Pernell Whitaker against Julio Cesar Chavez. Pernell Whitaker dominated that fight. It happened in the same venue. It's a similar situation, man. Very similar situation.
I'm gonna blame you if this happens.
Well, I mean, think about the styles. Think about the styles. Julio Cesar Chavez, very come forward guy, similar to Canelo. Pernell Whitaker, one of the slickest fighters of all time. To be honest, one of my top 5 favorite fighters of all time. I loved Pernell Whitaker growing up, man. And we have the same situation, same venue. Let's hope the Texas Commission does not F this up, man.
Based on a track record, I think you might be right.
And the Bulls are getting hosed out of a lot of calls right now against the Knicks, man.
Yeah, man, I'm watching this too. They're in overtime. You got the lead for now.
Yeah.
But you'll be in Rio Doso this weekend talking to Austin Trout. You could challenge him in any basketball like you did last time.
No, it's just going to rematch. The guy wants a rematch, man. I lit him up in the last time we went out there. I don't want to say lit him up. I beat him by a bucket. But, we'll put up the video of me and him going at it, and we'll see how much his jumper improved. I mean, in his defense, this guy is cutting tons of weight. And
that's true.
Might not be able to muster it. I'm playing him at a 100%, but he wants his rematch. I'll give it to him. Canelo doesn't have a rematch clause. We had a rematch clause, so you might have to light him up. That my jumper on Tuesday nights during the Mormon League balling, it's gonna come in handy.
That's right, man. You're prepping for this game, and he's sleep deprived, and all the energy sapped out.
He's gonna have to go against this Mexican first.
I think that's gonna wrap up our show, man. As always, again, get in touch with Fight Fans Radio through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Ustream. That has our show along with the rest of the Fight Fans Radio network. Also, follow the Low Blow on Twitter through @TheLowBlow. Email lowblow505@gmail.com. Also, our Facebook page and our YouTube page that has all the interviews. And also, it's going to have Jorge's exclusive coverage of Canelo Austin Trout. So, for Jorge Hernandez, I'm just in good dream. You have a safe trip out to Rio Doso, man. Don't hurt yourself too badly playing ball. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.